Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:59 a.m. East Coast time, Monday, September 23rd, and we have a showdown slate tonight between the Washington Redskins and the Chicago Bears. And boy, is this showdown slate terrible. Just terrible. Awful game in general. But it is a football game. It is still the first month of the season, so we can still get excited even though there's terrible games. It's still nice because there's games in general, right? So welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, in MLB streets. We're here in the NFL one game showdown slate. If you get any value from this video, we're about 300 subscribers away from 10,000. Really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. I'll be live tonight around 6:30 for about 45 minutes before this slate locks. So you can come, you can hang then as well. I have a lot of free stuff down in the description. You can follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. I also have exclusive content that is also linked up down in the description. Exclusive podcasts, exclusive live streams, projections, rankings, all that stuff is linked down below on my Patreon account. So that's all the housekeeping for this episode. Hopefully you all had a good weekend. I am currently had a profitable weekend. I felt really good about it. Felt really bad about one switch that I made in a 3v3 where I ended up taking out Keenan Allen and Dalvin Cook to put in Ezekiel Elliott and Chris Carson. And boy, oh boy, that was a difference of about 50 points. So yeah, my 1-3 max and like the $150 max, that's the difference between winning like $400 and winning like $2,500. So not great, but we'll get through it. Yeah, so let's get into the slate. Like I said, it's disgusting. Like I did a first sweep of this slate, and I had 3 interests in terms of guys that were yeses. And then I was like, well, you actually have to play more than that, so we're going to have to find some more interest in here. So I'll start from the top and name through all the interests, touch on anything below that I don't have interest in and why. So you get Allen Robinson at the top. He's the most talented player on the slate, in my opinion. I know that there's a couple other guys who have talent, Terry McLaurin, David Montgomery, a couple rookies on the slate. But yeah, he leads the team in routes run with 76. Right now, and I have a double R on this, so this is just going to mess with me if I leave it. But he leaves the team in routes run, and he's going to be motioned into the slot a lot for good matchups. These Washington cornerbacks are absolutely terrible. Like, I have no worry. Josh Norman's going to try and shadow him. Even if he follows him into the slot, that's fine. Allen Robinson is going to eat Josh Norman's lunch. Have you seen Josh Norman play this year? Have you seen him play towards the end of last year? If you still think Josh Norman is a good cornerback, go look at any games with Josh Norman in it. I'm sure there's Redskins fans out there right now that know he's not a good cornerback, and they're like, yes, keep saying it. Spread the word. Because he's not. He's terrible. Right now he ranks 95th out of all qualifying cornerbacks in the league. That's not good through 2 weeks. If you look back to last year, he was nowhere near an elite top-level cornerback. Last week he got toasted for a long touchdown, and he just looked around. He was like, well, where's my safety? It was your fault. So Josh Norman's terrible. If Allen Robinson covers him, that's fine. He's barely a top 100 cornerback through 2 weeks in this league, and just terrible PFF grades last week and the week before. He got toasted week 1. Yeah, so give me Allen Robinson. I think he's fine. 9,800 is too cheap of a price point. I don't know how Allen Robinson's not the most expensive player on the slate. Like Mitch Trubisky has been, through 2 weeks, the worst starting cornerback in the NFL, quarterback that has started 2 games, right? I mean, obviously, guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick have looked really bad, but Mitch has been just terrible. And then you have Case Keenum, who I think has actually been serviceable to like okay, really wherever he's gone for the past couple of years. But he's still more expensive than Allen Robinson. That doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I have interest in Allen Robinson. If you follow along with me, you know that I'll be playing running backs and wide receivers primarily in my captain spot, and that's about it. $9,800 Allen Robinson is not really breaking the bank either, so I like that spot. David Montgomery has to be an interest. Like, he originally wasn't that big of an interest of mine. Like, he was an X, and then I was like, oh, I have to start playing some other players. So, yeah, $9,400 David Montgomery. You'll get in there sometimes. So, 44% of the snaps last week isn't great, but he touched the ball a ton. He led the team in the backfield in touches. He got in the end zone. They seemed to feature him as the main priority last week, as opposed to when they didn't feature him at all week 1 with only 6 total touches in the backfield and 1 catch. So it was nice to see Montgomery. He caught a ball as well, got in the end zone, got goal line, red zone work. And the big news here was that Mike Davis, I believe, only touched the ball 3 times on the ground, as opposed to Montgomery getting 16-plus touches, 18 touches, I believe it was. So you like to see that. The matchup against this Washington front, Washington is definitely stronger on their front 7, right? Their secondary, I was just telling you, is right now atrocious. Not only is Josh Norman bad, their best qualifying cornerback is ranked like 63rd right now, or 65th. So yeah, they don't have any like star cornerbacks now. When you get to Washington's secondary, when you get to their front, that's when they're just, or that's where they've been decent. or not their secondary. When you get to their front and a couple of their safeties, that's where they've been decent. Definitely their safeties. David Montgomery, he's fine tonight. There's nothing that stands out. That's the thing though. Like Allen Robinson, I would much rather pay for at 9,800. Terry McLaurin, the guy who scored twice 2 weeks in a row, he's looked fantastic. He beat slow cornerbacks week 1 against the Eagles. He beat fast cornerbacks week 2 against the Cowboys. So he got it done against guys who had the same types of 40-yard run times as him, and the guys that just didn't. $8,600 seems too cheap for this slate. Again, I like wide receivers and running backs in my captain spot. Can you get 2 touchdowns like Cooper Kupp last night? Can you go for 100+ in a touchdown like Odell did and like DeAndre Hopkins has done? And it was funny. I was on the Awesemo stream last night, and now it was 5 out of 7 before last night, wide receivers in the captain spot. Now it's been 6 out of 8. That's something to take note of. Like, they're the easiest person that can score points and can get 2 touchdowns, in my opinion, is a wide receiver. Sure, a running back like Adrian Peterson can have 20 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. But even then, that's probably not needed in the captain spot if he only has like 15, 16 points. When a guy like Cooper Kupp goes for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's needed. When a guy like Brandon Cooks goes for over 100 yards last night, that's needed. Maybe not in the captain spot, but you need that stuff. So I really do heavily favor wide receivers in the captain spot. Running backs, if they're obviously really good, they can get there too. So like tonight, I'm really looking at Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, and that's probably it because I really don't feel confident about any of these other guys. Maybe another guy named Anthony Miller we'll get to. So Terry McLaurin, yeah, he's fine. He's played 92% of the snaps this year. He's ran 75 routes, and get this, 2.49 yards per route run. That's absolutely incredible. 2.49. You want me to compare that to somebody? Taylor Gabriel, who I think is a pathetic wide receiver, he has his 0.47 yards per route run. Yeah, that's the difference in terms of being very effective when you're running routes. Terry McLaurin through 2 weeks has been one of the best in the entire league. I think he's fine. Chris Thompson at 7,400. I think it's a really fair price point on him. Don't think he's too expensive. Don't think he's too cheap. It's a good price point for a game script that once again is going to say, well, the Washington Redskins are going to be trailing in this game. If you try and run the ball with Adrian Peterson against the Chicago front, maybe he gets in a goal line touchdown, Adrian Peterson, but it's going to be very similar to last week where he plays less than 30% of the snaps and has like 2 yards per carry because this Chicago front is legit. Very legit. These guys just rank out through the first 2 weeks through PFF as fantastic. Not only on pass rushes, amazing, right? The edge rushers that you have on each side of this Chicago line, but just players in the middle as well. It's really tough to run against this team. So if you're going to be trailing and you can't run against them, Chris Thompson is the exact piece that you want, a guy who's going to be getting you those easier chunk yards in the passing game. I do like Chris Thompson, not so much as a captain, but as a really good utility play. Trey Quinn was originally listed as a maybe, but I had to get him up because we didn't have anybody, and they just broke his price point. Like, his price point is completely broken here. $3,800. You're going to tell me that he's cheaper than both defenses today? You're going to tell me that he's barely more expensive than both kickers? Trey Quinn is leading this slate, again, 1 game, but both teams in routes run, 79. He has 88% of the snaps on the year through 2 games. Look, he doesn't have high upside, I write here, but he's damn too cheap. Like, this isn't a guy who's going to go out there and get 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Can he do it? Yeah, but he's not going to. Might not ever do it in his career. That's not his game. He runs such short routes. But he's running a ton of routes, and he's playing 88% of the snap. Like, Trey Quinn's price is broken. It's not like he's 6,800, and then I'm like, oh, well, all right, he doesn't have much upside. Sure, he's running routes. Like, Trey Quinn is probably in line for 3 to 4 catches as, like, a floor for this guy. And he's going to have 3 to 4 catches for, like, 40 yards. Like, it's nothing fantastic, but he's 3,800, and, like, his floor tonight for me is 6 to 7 points. And he clearly has a ceiling with a touchdown or so into the 15-point range. So if you're telling me that this guy's floor and median projection for the most part is like higher than the kickers and right around the defenses, and he clearly has a higher ceiling because he's going to score touchdowns, which kickers can't, and he's going to score touchdowns more frequently than defenses can. Yeah, Trey Quinn for me seems like a staple, not in the captain spot. I'm not going to get cute and say, Trey Quinn. No, in your captain spot, you want 100+ yards and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns. So Trey Quinn in the utility spot makes a lot of sense. Now we get to my maybes, which there's a lot of, right? Mitch Trubisky has been terrible, so bad. But like in terms of just fitting a lineup together, somebody who can get you like 12 points, obviously he's a quarterback, can have a lot of opportunity. He'll get one of them. I already have it right here. This Washington secondary is the cornerbacks are bad, the safeties are okay. Don't let the name value of Josh Norman fool you. He's been terrible through 2 weeks. He's been terrible dating back to last year. What a waste of money he's been, in my opinion. His rushing upside helps a little bit with Trubisky, but he's been bad. No touchdowns. He's 33rd in quarterback rating. Yes, 33rd out of 32 starting quarterbacks. And he's 34th in yards per attempt. Yes, so a lot of backups have been playing better than him as well. Even if you factor out like neutral situations, he's still outside of the top 32 quarterbacks in the league in adjusted yards per attempt. So Mitch Trubisky has been bad. Like, I mean, obviously, if you watched Thursday Night Football to start the year, you knew it looked brutal. And then if you caught any glimpses for betting reasons or Draftkings or fantasy of that Denver and Chicago game last week, outside of like a bunch of penalties to make them win the game and kick the deep field goal. Mitch Trubisky in that game was awful. So 2 games now where he's been bad. Now he gets some weak cornerback play, but still a decent secondary, still a decent front. Secondary really being propped up by the safeties. So, I don't think it's a priority to get a quarterback on this slate. I'm somebody who plays a quarterback on at least one of my lineups in all the slates because usually the upside of a quarterback, they're in a winning lineup like 3/4 of the time. This could be the time where a quarter of the time they're not. It's very viable that getting Allen Robinson and David Montgomery and Terry McLaurin over one of the quarterbacks and those 3 guys in one lineup is more viable. It definitely, in my opinion, has more upside. The only reason that I would get to a quarterback is just due to the odds. If Mitch Trubisky, he's going to throw touchdown passes this year, right? He hasn't thrown one yet. Over a 16-game sample, he's going to throw, and he's going to average more than 1 a game, I would imagine. He's going to have 20-something or right around 20. So I would imagine tonight he gets a touchdown. So there's your upside there. He has 20 to 30 yards on the ground in him, and then whatever he does in the passing game. So Mitch Trubisky, 12 points. Yeah, on this type of a slate, that could be enough, even at his price tag, which is just ridiculous. The Bears defense is a maybe. They're $6,200, guys. They're priced up through the roof. Look, Washington, Case Keenum is not fantastic. The Bears, obviously, their pass rush is absolutely elite. They're going to get to this guy. They're going to get sacks, which when you can cause pressure and get sacks, that's when you get interceptions, fumbles, turnovers, or whatever it is. That's when you get your fantasy points in your big game. So I'm not totally opposed to the Bears defense at all, because on this slate, 6,200 is somewhat warranted because there's just not a lot of decent players. But once again, give me Chris Thompson if I can find the extra $1,200. I just that $6,200 price tag. I guess if I have $7,500 left over, I already have Chris Thompson, and my options are Paul Richardson, Bears defense, Adrian Peterson, Jordan Reed's out, Taylor Gabriel, all these guys. I guess maybe then I go to Bears defense just to leave money on the table, right? But even then, that's kind of ugly. So I kind of lean not to play them. 6,200 is just such a steep price point. I understand though, they do have slate breaking ability, especially on a slate where there's not many playmakers. Paul Richardson, I have him as a maybe. Main reason why is his positionality. He plays wide receiver. He's been in on 85% of the snaps. He's ran 73 routes so far this year. He has a .73 yards per route run, which means he's not being very effective with his routes run. But again, he's cheap. He's playing on a slate where these Chicago Bears, honestly, their secondary isn't that great either. So yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Trey Quinn in the slot, I'd much rather play for that price point. I'd rather get up to Terry McLaurin. That's something else to point out. Chicago Bears, their front is elite. Their safeties have been very good. But overall, if you look at their cornerbacks as well, their cornerbacks haven't done anything great, which bodes even well for Trey Quinn in the slot because he won't have to face much safety coverage. But Paul Richardson, yeah, he's just a maybe. He's not a guy that I have a no on because the price tag is good and he's going to see 4 to 5 targets in this game. And again, this game is going to be terrible, so that helps. Redskins defense is definitely in play at 4,000. I'd rather play the Redskins defense than the Bears at 6,200. I mean, you're saving 2,200 and you're getting to play Mitch Trubisky, who's been a much worse quarterback than Case Keenum so far. So yeah, I actually prefer that play of the Redskins defense to the Bears, especially because you save 2,200, right? It's a pricing thing. This isn't it's a non-salary based thing. Anthony Miller is a guy that I like a lot. $3,600 Anthony Miller. So the reason why, Tariq Cohen, people are going to play him tonight. Tariq Cohen played a ton in the slot week 1, played a ton of snaps. Week 2, he only plays 38% of the snaps. His snaps go down by 30%. Overall, and Anthony Miller's snaps go up by 30%. So ding, 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 there's the math. Anthony Miller was playing more last week because he was getting healthier. Another week removed, another extra day even, right? Monday Night Football, he's getting healthier. I imagine he continues to play a lot of reps in the slot. And that's a spot where I imagine you're going to see more and more usage out of him going into the slot, coming out wide. So Anthony Miller's a talented wide receiver. He's their number 2 wide receiver behind Allen Robinson. So even if you think Josh Norman is decent, he's not. Well, then you're going to get Anthony Miller lining up against even worse cornerbacks on the outside. So, or even in the slot. So right now, yeah, Anthony Miller at 3,600, similar to Trey Quinn. Both these guys are way too cheap for their usage. I get it. Anthony Miller hasn't run a ton of routes, right? He's only ran 24 routes through 2 weeks, but he didn't play any snaps really week 1. He played 20% of the snaps week 1, barely ran any routes because he was playing very injured. Week 2, he goes up to 52%. There's your 30% bump up, and he ran a lot more routes last week. So I think the snaps are going to continue to come up. I think the routes are going to continue to get higher. And the main thing here is that he's $3,600. This is a guy whose opportunities are rising, but his price isn't, so I do like him. I have both the kickers as maybes. Again, it's a game that's going to be disgusting and dirty. If a kicker scores 12 points, they're going to be needed. I'm not breaking down the kickers. I mean, Eddie Pinheiro is probably the better one. He's coming into this game with an injury, but they brought him on the trip, and they have not yet signed another kicker, so it seems like he's going to play. That's always worrisome. You're going to play a kicker who's dealing with an injury. That seems like the worst possible thing, especially if it's a lower body. So you can pick whichever one you want. They're both cheap. I'd much rather play Anthony Miller and or Trey Quinn than one of these kickers, though. And then my nose, there's going to be obviously some pushback on some of these nose. I'm going to tell you why I don't like them. Adrian Peterson's going to be playing from behind like last week. And once they get down, they bring in Chris Thompson. He played less than 30% of the snaps. Even if he scores a touchdown, like if he scores a touchdown, has 30 yards tonight, maybe he's needed with 9 fantasy points, maybe, but maybe not even, right? He's 5,800. It's not like he's dirt cheap. Case Keenum, I'd rather get to Mitch Trubisky, although Mitch Trubisky been a terrible quarterback. I do think that regresses. Mitch Trubisky has more rushing upside, which for a one-game slate cannot go unnoticed. And then Mitch Trubisky also has the better matchup. I mean, Case Keenum against this secondary and also really the safeties in this front of the Bears is just going to be just murder. Vernon Davis, there's probably not going to be Jordan Reed. I think he's already ruled out with a concussion. 7 reported in his NFL career. That man has to retire. It's very scary, honestly, for somebody who's had serious concussions. Just stop playing the game. It's not worth it at that point. I don't care how much you love the game of football. Like, you're going to die at 50 years old, and that's scary. Yeah, I don't have much interest in Vernon Davis. Look, people want to jump on Vernon Davis. He's running a lot of routes, a good amount, right? Like 65, 78% snap percentage, but he's just not utilizing this offense. Like, people that want to tell me, but Vernon Davis played so well week 1. No, he caught like 3 balls for 11 yards, and then he caught a touchdown on a broken coverage, and the guy just whiffed on a tackle as well. So, like, outside of a really bad play on the defensive side by the team he faced week 1, the Eagles, I believe. So, outside of that play, he's got like 5 catches on the year for like 30 or 40 yards. So sure, he has touchdown upside. I'm sure he's not even cheap though. That's like the thing. He's $7,800 and he's priced up because he scored a touchdown on a blown coverage week 1. People want to tell me that wasn't a blown coverage. I mean, he was wide open, and then the guy that was supposed to tackle him just like dove and didn't do anything about it. Kind of a blown coverage. So yeah, no interest in Vernon Davis. No interest in Tariq Cohen actually, which is surprising. I think a lot of people will like him really on name value. Look, his snaps dropped 30% last week when Anthony Miller came back. They started giving the ball more to David Montgomery in the backfield. They didn't use him in the slot all that much last week because, again, Anthony Miller came back and he was out wide and then getting utilized in the slot. So, yeah, if he's going to be 6,800 and if people are going to be on him, I'm just going to fade him because I don't think many people are going to be paying attention to how much his usage went down from week 1 to week 2. I could see them kind of bumping it up a little bit, maybe in this game, just to kind of give easier throws to Mitch and get him going, but they can also do that with other players. So like in the slot with Taylor Gabriel, with Anthony Miller, or just getting it quick out to Allen Robinson, who will also be motioned into the slot. So yeah, I don't really have any interest in Tariq Cohen. The snaps going down by almost a third is a little bit worrisome. And then that's it. Taylor Gabriel, I think, is a very bad wide receiver. I don't know why the hell you would play Taylor Gabriel over Anthony Miller and or Trey Quinn. Taylor Gabriel, sure, he's running a lot of routes, 75 routes run, but he's doing nothing with his routes. Like, he's getting no separation. He's not even being thrown open, like, because you don't have a good quarterback. 0.47 yards per route run is, like, abysmal. That's terrible. So if you want to come to me and saying, but Sal, he's on the field. Yeah, I can be on the field. I might as well be on the field then and just run, like, straight and try and slant and, like, have no actual breakaway, no anything separation at the line of scrimmage, because that's what Taylor Gabriel is doing so far this year. Just abysmal. The guy's just a terrible wide receiver, in my opinion, at least right now. Like, when he was with Atlanta, he was decent in terms of going down the field, but right now he's terrible. I know week 1 that Mitch missed him on a deep pass, which maybe makes some things look a little bit different for his season through 2 weeks, but last week he was abysmal, like one of the worst wide receivers in terms of trying to create space. Adam Shaheen, no interest, even if Trey Burton's out, especially with that price tag coming up. No interest in Mike Davis, 56% of snaps week 1, goes down to 25% week 2. Only 3 touches last week. That's not great. I'm not dumpster diving for Ben Braunector like some of you are going to. He played 25% of the snaps last week. If Burton comes back, which he is going to, he came back last week limited. If he plays more, that's going to be less Braunector. There's just nobody I want here. Javon Wims has played 30% of the snaps this week or this year, and he's ran 27 routes, but he has 0 catches on 2 targets. That's not great. No routes run this year for Riley Ridley. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. 0 snaps so far this year for Kareth White Jr., the running back who was decent in the preseason. Wendell Smallwood has actually played 56% of the snaps. Or actually, no, those are my notes for Mike Davis. 56% of the snaps down to 25%. Yeah, Wendell Smallwood has not played 56% of the snaps. He's played very little snaps, and I don't want him, especially at his price point of $1,200. I think he's a little bit priced up due to his name. Yeah, Trey Burton. Trey Burton only ran 9 routes last week, right? Didn't play week 1. But it's likely due to his injury. Like, he was limited. I don't think he's 100% solid or healthy, but I think coming into this week, he's questionable once again, but he was limited all week. I think he's going to run more than 9 routes this week, right? So that's going to impact your Adam Shaheens, your Ben Braunectors, all those guys. So that's where I'm at. These are my interests. I'll be back live around 6:15, 6:30, closer to 6:30 p.m. East Coast time before this game kicks off. I'll be live for about 45 minutes. You can tune in then if you want with any more questions. Let me know where you're going with captain. Again, I heavily lean on wide receivers and running backs, and there's not many wide receivers and running backs on this slate that I would trust for it to be a captain. Like, there's literally 3 or 4. Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, Terry McLaurin, and maybe Chris Thompson, right? Those are like the 4. Anthony Miller would be like an outside 5th guy. But for the most part, it just looks like those top 3 guys on this list are the ones that stand out. So hopefully this video helps. I will be back later today with the first look lineup for week 4 of the NFL. Very exciting. Already a quarter of the way through. Not exciting, but just exciting that we're already on to a new week. And then I'll also be throughout the week on the Osmo streams. I'll be on my own channel, my picks video on Wednesday, my final thoughts video on Thursday night, that one dude, and some other stuff, right? Thursday Night Football. Videos out every single day on this channel. Be sure to hit the subscribe button before you go. Follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. Appreciate you tuning in. Roam around in the description if you would like. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right? And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a Patreon, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a Patreon. It will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well. See ya.